Hi, everybody, and welcome to the icetana Investor Update. I'm just going to walk us through our Q4 reporting and to give you a bit of an overview of how the business went for the quarter finished 30th of June 2021. I've got our regulatory and legal compliance statements here. Please take a bit of a moment to understand these before I dive into the information. And just reflecting on what icetana does. So first up, we are a software company. We don't build cameras or hardware. We're a software company that builds AI-driven, so artificial intelligence-driven video analytics. Our software picks up the feeds from surveillance cameras, learns movement patterns based on pixel movement in front of those cameras, and then reports anomalous and unusual movement in real time. So we do that by displaying the events on a black screen interface, which you can see at the bottom right of this screen. And as the events happen, they fade in, they fade out. They catch the attention of the security operators so that security operators in control rooms around the world can respond in real time to events as they are happening. This is a big change for the security industry. So historically, most surveillance cameras were just doing recorded footage and you would use them for forensic purposes after an event's taken place. With icetana, we move our customers over to a real-time situational awareness scenario where they can respond from the control room as events happen in front of their cameras. We really activate those cameras for real-time response. We plug into existing large video management systems already out there in the marketplace. The two leaders in the industry are Milestone and Genetec. So we've built deep integrations with both of those. Alternatively, we have our own platform so that we don't necessarily have to ride on the back of the video management systems. We can also take the feeds directly from the cameras. To give you a rough idea of a typical customer will have between 100 and 1,000 cameras coming into a security operations center or control room. They'll have surveillance operators who are actively looking at those cameras on screens in front of them and responding to incidents as they happen, or managing guards who are out in the field. They miss many, many events in the current environment. So with icetana, they get to start to see events in real time and respond to them. Let's just talk a little bit about the industry and where we sit within that industry. It is a huge and growing market. There are over 600 million surveillance cameras around the world. The spending on video analytics, in particular surveillance analytics, is growing at 19% per annum and already in the billions of dollars. If you just look at facial recognition companies, for example, there's at least 3 unicorns. That's companies worth more than $1 billion just doing facial recognition in this space. So AI has been advancing really rapidly, and more companies are thinking about how they are going to leverage the technology and the investment they've put into these surveillance networks. Some of the surveillance networks are around security, such as the perimeter around your buildings, but some of it is watching their own staff to make sure that they're complying with health and safety. So, for example, inside warehouses or in logistics centers, where the forklift trucks have driven in the wrong direction. Now, icetana has been in this industry for 11 years now. We have over 14,000 cameras which are using icetana every day. We're analyzing literally millions and millions of hours of footage every single week. At the moment, our business is in a really good place for scaling up our product into many, many other markets. And we've been transitioning our revenue profile from a business that was largely selling on an enterprise type basis, that is a very high upfront fee and a trailing maintenance fee, into a software as a subscription basis, which is a annual recurring fee, and we charge on a per camera basis with our customers. So where do we get value when we go and present to our customers? There are 2 main areas of customer value that we present. Number 1, we capture events in real time. So that's all about risk reduction and being able to nip things in the bud. icetana catches a broad range of events rather than specifically looking just for fires or just for crowding or just for health and safety breaches. We are actually finding a wide range of different events because our system is reporting movement that's abnormal. It doesn't really matter what kind of activity it is, so long as the movement is abnormal, we start to report it. And the feedback we get from our customers is that it's quite an extraordinary change to have that put into their environment. This is one of the reasons we have extremely low churn. In other words, customers very seldom leave icetana. Once they sign up with us, it becomes critical to their delivery of their security operations. The second area that's really interesting, and something we honestly have only just learned about in the last couple of years, is the efficiency improvements that can come from icetana for a security monitoring business. If you run a guarding services company and you are bringing a lot of video feeds into a centralized control room and reporting and picking up events for customers that pay you for that service, we can dramatically increase the amount of cameras that each operator can monitor. That's a clear return on investment opportunity, an opportunity to grow their business without hiring additional staff, and an opportunity to catch more events in real time. So it's a really interesting fit for us. And there are some markets around the world, particularly South America and Japan, which I'll talk about later, that are very, very well suited to this type of opportunity. Let's have a little look at our financial results since listing. And we got listed about 17 months ago, so just before Christmas in 2019. We were very badly affected by COVID first up. And this chart represents the first time we've reported our annualized recurring revenue. And just as a refresher for those of you who are not necessarily au fait with the software industry closely, annualized recurring revenue is a representation of the forward-looking revenue of the business based upon your current recognized revenue in that particular month. So if you look at how much revenue we've recognized in the month of June, you multiply it by 12, you get to that number of about $1.35 million. We've jumped our annualized recurring revenue by 64% since the March quarter. And you can see that wasn't just one client being signed up. That was a string of growth over the course of the 3 months. This is really important because annualized recurring revenue presents a baseline of revenue upon which we then grow further. Okay. The reason why we were able to achieve this significant jump is because COVID, which has been slowing our deployments capability, has lessened. People are starting to treat it more as the new norm. Vaccinations are getting out there, and we've got a bit of a recovery from COVID story going on within icetana, where clients are now reopening their premises and saying, okay, we're ready for you to install this software and get it up and running. So those things that were sitting in my order book are now being deployed. I'd also like to call out that, we recognized very early on after the listing that COVID was going to affect our operations. And rather than growing our expenditure and investing in sales and marketing, where customers were going very, very cold on new expenditures such as icetana, we actually cut our costs quite dramatically. We reduced our headcount, we reduced our spend in a number of different areas, and we managed to support our cash position very strongly coming into the end of the financial year. And you can see on a rolling basis that we've averaged just $75,000 in burn each month through the course of the financial year. And that bodes very well for the period ahead because we ended the year with about $1.75 million in the bank. That gives us a solid, well in excess of 12 months of cash flow looking forwards. We also managed to continue to close sales orders. So since listing, we've continued to have some order growth. It comes through in quite chunky amounts sometimes from larger customers, but I've grouped some here for reporting purposes. And it gives you an idea of the range of different verticals that we deal with. Of course, our greatest success is in the shopping malls and shopping center surveillance areas, but also we've started to crack into prisons and integrated resorts, such as the deal we signed in Singapore. Whenever we do a deal in excess of about $100,000, we do announce that to the market at the time of receiving the order from the client. The time of the order is generally 2 to 4 months ahead of when we start recognizing the revenue. That number has been drawn out by COVID further, and we're playing a bit of catch up now in terms of our rollout. I would also like to mention that our pipeline has been growing really nicely, particularly in the fourth quarter. So our pipeline is kind of our recognition of customers who've got engaged with us, where we have gone through a process of assessing their needs and requirements, understanding how many cameras they have and whether they have available budget, and then putting a rough estimate on what that deal might be worth. It gets put into our customer relationship management process for our salespeople to work through the sales process. We've had a big leap in interest in the organization over the last quarter, and that bodes really well for future orders flowing through for the business. I'll just talk briefly about the team and our strategy going forwards. So from a team perspective, Raf Kimberly Bowen has joined as the Chief Financial Officer. He's been with us since January now. He's doing an extraordinary job. He's a very data-driven and experienced software financial leader. Kevin Brown, who joined pre-IPO, has been driving our product development side of things, and I'll be talking about that in a short while. But I'd particularly like to call out Kevin for his role in developing 2 of Western Australia's 3 major unicorns out of the state in the software industry, Nearmaps and VGW, two very large and successful businesses. Kevin was intimately involved in turning those businesses into very profitable ventures. The third unicorn, for those of you who haven't heard about it, is Canva. They're now based in Sydney, but that's an extraordinary story out of Perth as well. And I've been with icetana since founding, so 11 years with the business. About 8 of those years I've been sitting on the board, so the past 3 years in the CEO seat. All of us paid a pretty average salary. However, we are very much motivated by the options that are allocated to us. And I just call out that our options are strike priced at 25 cents on the stock market, and that continues to incent us because we really do believe that this business can easily exceed that share price in the period ahead. All 3 members of the executive team have invested our own cash into the business in the last 6 months as well. From a growth strategy perspective, I did mention guarding services in South America and Japan. These are 2 really interesting markets for us. We've got resellers active there and a number of quite large opportunities. We also continue to grow our business in the Middle East, which is a very actively surveilled market. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but we are starting to get some great progress on our V2 product. This is the second major release for icetana, where we are able to match our features much more closely with the requirements of the customers. A big portion of that will be reducing the time between getting a purchase order and deploying the solution. So I talked about that 3 to 4 month lead time between an order and us actually earning the revenues. The new product can be deployed a lot faster, a lot more quickly, and it doesn't take as long to learn what's going on in front of the cameras. We believe that this product is going to provide some really big steps up in terms of the savings on active monitoring solutions. And so that market for people who are doing security guarding services is really going to open up for us as we get this product out. So talking a little bit more about the V2 product, I'd just like to call out that this is something that we have seriously built from the ground up. So we took the 10 odd years of experience that icetana had in building our base platform, and we started with a clean sheet and we built it using contemporary technology. So we're utilizing NVIDIA's DeepStream platform. NVIDIA's the guys who build the graphics cards that do a lot of the heavy lifting and processing in the AI world, not just in gaming, but also in autonomous vehicles and many other areas. We've built a really nice new user interface experience that we're really keen to get in front of our customers, and we filed a patent for that 2 weeks ago. Now that the patent's filed, we can start to unveil that a little bit more. We're building the platform entirely from the ground up to work in the cloud context. So we not only can do on-premise delivery, which many of our customers need because they like that level of security, but also have a cloud-capable solution, which really opens up our ability to very quickly get customers testing out the product, and that calls to that client trial period dramatically shortened at the bottom right there. Everything's being built on a browser instead of being built in a custom interface, so you can actually start to see icetana just by opening your browser and away you go. And then perhaps most importantly, we're starting to add to our core algorithms. We're using convolutional and recurrent neural networks to improve the performance there, and we're starting to do things like object detection and action recognition, which lets us merge the best of 2 worlds, the world of icetana, which finds anomalies, and the world of rules-based analytics, which finds specific events. So we might go to a prison, let's say next year when we've got this product available, and we say, look, we're going to show you whenever there's something weird like smoke coming out of a doorway or something like that, but we will also specifically highlight to you whenever there is a fight breaking out, because we've built a system to detect when there is violence, as an example. This is a quick snapshot of the user interface that we've developed, a bit of a sample of how it might look with V2. It shows where the events are. It allows people to play them back very quickly, to select their own highlights, and create a really interesting highlights reel from each week that goes by. This is particularly valuable for guarding services companies because they can go back to their client every week and say, here are the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 events that we've responded to in real time that we picked up with icetana at your site and made sure that things didn't get worse for you. So it's a very powerful offering to the customers. Just a quick mention of our competitors. So I included this slide in the update because it's important to know the market that we live in. Briefcam, a business out of Israel, they were bought by Canon in 2018. They still operate quite independently from Canon, although they're 100% owned. They were bought for $120 million and have been very successful in the market since. They don't offer too much in terms of real-time anomaly detection, which is our space, but they're very, very good at the forensics and the rule-based analysis, and they have been quite successful. AnyVision is a facial recognition business, which just did a capital raise in the last few weeks with SoftBank that valued them well in excess of $1 billion. And iRicity is a company that's listed with the NASDAQ First North. And that business has some really interesting multiples, which I'm going to dive into in the next couple of slides, which, by the way, were not included in our quarterly update. They're not something that I'll be filing with the ASX, and it's public information, so I'm just going to share it with you. Visites is a company out of Israel, which also offers a similar type of offering, and we know that those guys were recently privately valued in excess of $50 million. So a quick mention of iRicity. They're based out of Stockholm. They list icetana in their own documents as being a direct competitor for them. You can see they've made our logo as light and grey as humanly possible. And these guys are valued currently at about 33 times sales or 65 times their ARR. So their revenue is between 2 and 3 times what we're turning over, but their valuation is well in excess of 200 million Australian dollars when converted from Swedish krona. If you apply those types of multiples to icetana, there's a lot of growth opportunities. So my job is to make sure that investors understand that we have the same type of opportunity to grow our business as what iRicity faces right now. And we'll be working really hard to drive up those revenues and prove it to all of you. Now, I've got a few sample events because we are a video analytics company. So I thought I'd just whip through a few example events, the types of things we find, just to keep it a bit interesting. So first up, this is a scene from a parking lot in the Middle East. You can see from the arrows which way that car should have been going. We pick up very well any movements that go on within car parks. This is an example of a person accessing a secure area. They're actually getting through that fence line to go and do graffiti on rail carriages, which is extremely expensive to remove. And we did a great job of finding graffiti people doing this type of activity. This is an example of a protest from one of our clients, which is the University of California in San Diego. You can see the wind is blowing the trees quite a bit. Meanwhile, the system has still picked up this protest as a very different movement to what it's used to see in this environment. This is an example of graffiti taking place at a university here in Australia. We recently heard from this university that graffiti has pretty much ceased since icetana started to be used within their campus. So that's an extraordinary good outcome for that particular client. They've been a client with us for about 7 years now. This is a scene from another university site. Universities do have major issues with the theft of bicycles. And if you happen to own a bicycle and park it outside at all, this might be a bit of a cause for concern about your locks and systems. But you'll see in just a moment just how anomalous this type of movement is. Battery-powered grinder can do a lot of work on a bicycle lock. Anyway, I'll jump forward. The next bike also gets taken. This is a scene from a prison. This prison is seen as a bakery. The gentleman on the left is about to open up the oven, and you'll see when he opens up the oven, there's a burst of smoke or steam that comes out. That has caused the first anomaly as it flares with the lights. This burst of steam and smoke is quite interesting. But in addition to that, when the steam gets to the camera lens, we get obfuscation, which is happening here. That's always a point for concern within prisons when lenses are blocked in any way. And this is another example from a prison. If you look at the gentleman at the top there, it's a minimum security prison. The windows are not locked. And the poor old prisoners, their colleagues are actually breaking into their cells to steal things. And that's the end of my presentation. I really appreciate you spending a bit of time with me today, and I look forward to you joining us as an investor or sticking around as an investor, and I look forward to the financial year ahead. I think we've got a lot of good stuff ahead of us. Thanks for your time.